Yes, ladies and gentlemen, Sean Diddy Combs apparently has been found not guilty on the most serious charges of this case. And that right there lets you know that he's probably not going to do a lot of time. Now, what he is being charged with right now, I believe this is referred to as the Mann Act. We'll get into that a little bit more with detail. But Sean Diddy Combs has been found not guilty on the more serious charges of that trial, which is racketeering and sex trafficking. Let's go ahead and get into it. A lot of people are split on this. Some people are saying free Diddy. Some people are saying put that mofo in jail. Let's get into it.
Forgive me. We have the first verdict on count one, racketeering conspiracy. How do you find the defendant not guilty? And so now they'll move on to count two. Count two, how do you find the defendant not guilty? That is the sex trafficking of Cassandra Ventura. On count three, which is Mann Act transportation involving Cassie Ventura, guilty. Count four, sex trafficking of Jane, not guilty. Count five, Mann Act transportation of Jane, guilty.
So long story short, he was found guilty for prostitution, not found guilty for trafficking, not found guilty for racketeering. And those were the more serious charges of that case, which means maybe Suge Knight was right. When Suge Knight called in the News Nation, he said that Diddy was going to walk. No. Let's go on a little bit more here.
So, mixed verdict here. Not guilty on 3 of the charges, guilty on 2 of the charges. Lisa, your reaction?
Well, this might explain the sort of confusion that we had yesterday. And I want to go back to what a racketeering conspiracy is about and why, having found 2 instances of transportation with an intent to commit prostitution, this is a jury that still didn't find Sean Combs guilty of a racketeering conspiracy because, as you and I were just discussing, 2 acts of transportation for purposes of prostitution would qualify as the 2 predicate racketeering acts. But of course, a RICO charge requires 2 other things. It requires that the jury find an existence of a conspiracy, and it requires also that they find that there is an enterprise formed for the purposes of carrying out unlawful acts. And that may be where the hangup is, because the charges of transporting both Cassie Ventura and Jane Doe for purposes of prostitution, they were against Sean Combs alone. They were not framed as conspiracy charges. The jurors here saying they find Sean Combs guilty of it, but they may not have bought the fact that, for example, to the extent that people in his business life, people who were employees of Combs Enterprises, which even the prostitution concedes is also a legitimate business, they may not have accepted that Sean Combs was simultaneously running a criminal enterprise largely fueled by people who were legitimate employees of his other businesses, including his chief of staff, his heads of security, multiple personal assistants. According to the prosecution's theory of the case and testimony that they obtained, all of those people were intimately involved in facilitating Sean Combs's 2 decades long pattern of sex trafficking and abuse of these women. Again, based on this verdict, you may have a jury that just didn't buy that part. They may have thought Sean Combs did this alone, but he wasn't responsible for sex trafficking his ex-girlfriends. At worst, he transported them different places, both within the United States and outside the United States.
And we'll pause here for just a second. And this was the feeling I was getting a couple of days ago when they announced that the jury was split, that there were, people that were inside the courtroom said some of the jury members were, I guess, like rolling their eyes, or they just were like, okay, whatever, that they weren't really buying some of these statements. And I think one of the things that hurts the sex trafficking charge for Cassie and alike, when there was the moment during Cassie's testimony when she said that she was the one that brought the people in, that he instructed her to bring them across state lines. Remember back then when we covered Cassie's testimony, I told you Well, technically, that means that Cassie did the sex trafficking, right? Technically, she brought them across state lines. But what her team was trying to argue was that this is something she was forced to do, not something she wanted to do. There was testimony throughout this trial where Dawn Richards, for example, at one point she was on the stand and she was asked, like, if she left because it was so difficult working with Diddy. And she's like, well, no, I stayed there, because she was still reaping the benefits at that point in time, right? So it's like some of the testimony, I think, helped Diddy instead of hurting Diddy. Does that make any sense? I hope I'm making sense to people. Some of the things that were brought to trial didn't really have much to do with the case. Like, for example, for all the people who were talking about, well, Kid Cudi was there and Diddy tried to blow up Kid Cudi's car, I don't see what that had to do with the charges. You see what I mean? Like, I know that he knew Cassie, but that had nothing to do with the charges. Another thing that people continued to bring up was the video where Diddy was beating Cassie. I continued to remind people even back then, that was not one of the charges. There was no charge of assault or domestic abuse. So that's why that couldn't even get charged. And you're going to hear from a lawyer who is going to explain why they think that, keep playing the tape of him beating Cassie or whatever actually made things worse for Cassie. And then at the end of all of this, I think you need to ask yourself, who really won here? Because, I know people are still waiting to hear the sentence for the prostitution charges. But at the end of the day, the only one who really, Cassie won money, but the most he can get right now for the Mann Act is 10 years. That's the maximum he can get. I doubt they're going to give him 10 years for prostitution. I just seriously doubt it. This isn't just like some everyday Joe Schmo. Like, Diddy he's rich, he's famous. And don't forget, Diddy knows a lot of powerful people. We can always go back to that article, which I'll show you at the end, that Whitney Webb wrote about One Nation, One Label Under blackmail, where she made the connection between Diddy, Clive Davis, and Russell Simmons, all the way to Jeffrey Epstein. So you got to remember, Diddy knows a lot of powerful people. Also, I think I believe that if Diddy is sentenced, I would not be surprised if Donald Trump pardons Diddy. And there's another reason for this as well. Don't forget, they're pretty cool with each other back in the day, may not agreed with him politically, but Donald Trump went to some of these parties too. You see what I'm saying? Diddy partied with high profile people. So don't be surprised. Let's continue.
For the purposes of engaging in commercial sex acts with escorts whom he procured, or that the girlfriends or other people in his life procured for him. That was part and parcel, Anna, of the sort of freak-off pattern that prosecutors laid forth before this jury.
And so I want to bring in former Manhattan District Attorney Catherine Christian now. So we have 3 not guilty verdicts on the most serious crimes, the racketeering conspiracy, the sex trafficking crimes involving Cassie Ventura, as well as the woman who went by Jane, but guilty on 2 counts of transportation to engage in prostitution. What's your reaction to this verdict? What do you make of it?
Well, the defense is breathing a sigh of relief. Yes, there are 2 guilty counts on the Mann Act charges, but as Christy said earlier, he's no longer facing a mandatory minimum. He's been acquitted on the highest counts, the RICO counts, the sex trafficking counts. What I think the juries are allowed to speak publicly about their verdict. But what happens here when you have sex trafficking for Miss Ventura and then the sex trafficking for Jane Doe, the jury clearly did not believe that the government proved beyond a reasonable doubt that these 2 women were sex trafficked by force or by fraud or coercion. For Miss Ventura, it's a very hard lift to explain to a jury why someone would stay for years who's a victim of intimate partner violence And clearly, they've decided that she was not a victim of sex trafficking. The text messages where she indicated that she wanted to, engage in it, they may just have not believed that she wasn't a willing participant.
That part right there is, I think, what divided the jury in some way as well. Because if you look at the text messages and they're like, well, she had these text messages, so it seems like she was willing to participate in those acts, at least at that point in time. Long story short, to what she was just saying, it seems like some of the jury members didn't buy that Cassie was a victim. Now, again, this is where we go back to the videotape that people keep showing, right? Like the beating in the hallway, in the hotel hallway, which Cassie says that was her trying to leave. That was one of the times when she was trying to leave what was about to be a freak off, and she was trying to get out of there. Again, that wasn't one of the charges. So I think it would have been different if there was a charge of a domestic abuse or, assault, assault and battery, but that wasn't one of them. And so it almost feels like, to me, by showing that video, however many times it was shown, that actually might have helped Diddy more than it did Cassie, because people are like, okay, but that's not one of the charges. Like, what are we looking at here? Now, don't get me wrong, like, and we covered this when it happened. What was on that video was horrible, absolutely horrible. And there's no way that was a first time. There's no way that incident of him kicking her like that, nah, that wasn't the first time. But that wasn't the charge. And this is what I think, like, some people get confused by. They're like, well, we saw him do this. That wasn't one of the charges. There's a lawyer here that comes in. I was actually on RT with him one time, Lionel. Listen to what he says here, because he did try to warn people that this wasn't going to work the way people thought it would.
And that video of Cassie, I kept saying, you keep showing that, you're going to habituate this. It doesn't, you don't understand. What does this have to do with racketeering? Nothing. She made $30 million. She sued the hotel, I believe, got 20 from him. Plus they remain friends. Plus she has texts where she says, I like these freak offs. Plus these people could have left. They could have called the police. They could have done anything. They didn't. But they want you to believe that somehow she was a victim of this. Now, the argument could be made that when you were involved in something as complicated as this, when you are involved in this grief bonding and all this other kind of bonding and victim bonding, you can come up with any name you want for this. Go ahead. And there may be something to that. Probably is. Some psychological connection that pulls people together, that where people by virtue, remember that case, I forget what it was, these women who were kept hostage by this man, and sometimes the women didn't leave, they didn't escape. When you find yourself in a position of being held captive, kidnapped, mentally, actually, constructively, you'd be surprised what people do. They just give up. It's called learned helplessness. So I think there's something to be said for that. But there's no statute against that. That may be true in the real world, but there's no statute.
I will just say that another thing I wanted to add is that I don't think those text messages helped Cassie. I think that worked against her. I think, I'll be honest with you as well, I don't think Dawn's testimony from Danity Kane, I don't think that helped either. It just, I don't know, but I do know this. I know that, like I said, Diddy has a lot of money and knows very powerful people. And so people do need to keep this in mind. Like, if Diddy goes down, there's a bunch of other people that could go down as well. Powerful people that could go down as well. This kind of takes me back to the Epstein situation, right? Epstein's arrested. He's put in jail. All of a sudden, he's dead, because he could take a lot of powerful people down with him. So keep that in mind. Diddy wasn't just hanging out with other artists and producers. Diddy surrounded himself around powerful people. So you have to keep that in mind. Now, these other charges that he was found guilty for, this goes into the Mann Act, right? So let's talk a little bit about the Mann Act so that people understand what this is all about. What is the Mann Act? Why is it called the Mann Act? In 1910, Congress passed the bill, which was named after Republican U.S. Representative James Robert Mann of Illinois. It was also known as the White Slave Traffic Act of 1910. Let's continue on. How does it apply to the Combs case? Combs was convicted on counts involving two former girlfriends, Cassie and a woman who testified under the pseudonym Jane. Both women said at the trial that Combs had pressured them into degrading sex marathons with strangers who were paid for the sexual performances. Jane said she was once beaten by Combs for declining to participate. Cassie said that when she tried to walk out of one of the events, Combs beat her and dragged her down the hotel hallway. That is the video that we keep referring to, that video that we all saw. Combs was acquitted for sex trafficking and racketeering charges, but convicted for transporting people to engage in prostitution. In other words, it almost kind of, in so many ways, it almost kind of seemed like Diddy was a pimp. That's what it almost kind of feel like. Now, it goes on to say here a little bit of the history about this Mann Act. The law was originally prohibited this interstate or foreign commerce transport of any woman or girl for the purpose of prostitution or debauchery, or for any other immoral purpose. It followed a 1907 congressionally appointed commission to look into the issue of immigrant sex workers with the view that a girl would only enter prostitution if drugged or held captive. That's according to Cornell's Legal Information Institute. The law was used to secure a conviction against Jack Johnson, who became the first Black boxer to win a world heavyweight title in 1910. Johnson was convicted in 1913 by an all-white jury for traveling with his white girlfriend who worked as a sex worker in violation of the Mann Act. So does everybody see where this is applying here? That's him right there. That was boxer Jack Johnson right there. Now, this law has changed a little bit since 1910. So let's go to the more current version. Here we'll start with 1986. In 1986, it was updated, made the law gender neutral, and effectively ended the act's role in trying to legislate morality by changing debauchery and immoral purpose to any sexual activity for which any person can be charged with a criminal offense. The act received additional amendments in 1978 and 1994 to address issues of sexual exploitation of children. Nevertheless, Combs' legal team made a motion last February to dismiss a Mann Act charge, writing that the law has a long and troubling history as a statute with racist origins. Prosecutors said there was nothing racist about pursuing charges under the act. Most of Combs' accusers are people of color. So, this is basically what could happen now. For this particular act, he could receive up to a maximum of 10 years. Again, I don't think that's going to happen. I really don't think he's going to get 10 years. What I have questions about is everyone keeps mentioning Cassie, etc. What happened to the victims that said they were assaulted by Diddy when they were underage? What happened to that? What happened to the lawyer that said he had the names of like 100 something people, and some of them said that at the time that they were assaulted, they were underage? What happened to those people? Anybody? Bueller? Anybody know? Because I feel like we heard about that and then we didn't hear anything else about it. So I don't know. I'm a little bit confused because this isn't, at the time, this wasn't just about Cassie. According to the lawyer, there were other people who came forward. So what happened to all those people? Okay. So I don't know. Maybe they got scared. This woman says this. I want to show you some of the public reaction. She said he beat a woman on camera, stomped her head in, and this is y'all's verdict. Again, like I told you, it's disgusting, like what he did, but that wasn't the charge. See what I mean? We're going to look at some of the other reactions here. Boozy, let's hear what Boozy said.
Man, I'm so glad Diddy free, bro. You know, the reason is because I'm tired of seeing us black moguls get took down like that, bro. Like, and I'm tired of seeing us black people go against us black moguls like that. And I feel like if Diddy was a white man who done all this shit for people, you know, I know he ain't paid people, but if he done all this shit for hip hop, if he was white, they would have had so many white people out there protesting for this man losing his life behind a relationship, you know. And
That didn't happen with Harvey Weinstein, and that definitely didn't happen with Jeffrey Epstein, though.
and people always Boosie was on Diddy's side. Nah, it ain't that. It's because I'm thinking about seven children. Y'all thinking about one person. I'm thinking about these 7 kids who been in my kids' position. Not knowing if your daddy gonna come home or not is a burden on the child. So all y'all was like, no, I'm thinking about them damn children, man.
Maybe I need to look at the age numbers again, but his kids are pretty grown. Like, I think there may be maybe one of his kids might be. I thought his kids were all over the age of 18 at this point. Maybe I'm mistaken. Maybe he had other kids, but I'm still thinking about the people who, again, I'm going back to the people who said that they were assaulted at Diddy parties as minors, since he mentioned kids. Again, what happened to those people? People need to ask this question.
So man, I'm glad he free, bro. You know, like I've been said, I don't feel he was guilty of nothing. You know, nothing but domestic violence. You know, but the court spoke, man, and man, I'm happy that dude children, man. I know his feeling right now, bro. I'm just happy for them children, man. So, you know, Diddy sit your ass down somewhere. That's what you need to do. Grab Stevie J and your children and get the fuck on.
Yeah, I don't know if Boosie like maybe had a little bubbly before this or not, but he is happy that this has happened for Diddy. Thank you so much for letting me know. Someone just told me Tread said the twins and the other girl I think is 16 or 17. Okay, thank you. Wasn't aware of that. But the public reception to this, like I said, it's been mixed. I see some people saying free Diddy, some people saying no, lock that mofo up, etc. But what was also really weirdly interesting, there were Diddy, I guess, sycophants outside of the courthouse that decided that they wanted to put baby oil on themselves. Huh? Like dead serious. CNN host mentioned
proper
it here.
and etiquette that is happening inside of a courtroom. No, instead, I kid you not, people are pouring baby oil on one another outside this courthouse. Baby oil having a very big play in the freak-offs we heard about. You have people saying it's not Rico, it's Frico. You got applause coming when the mother of Sean Diddy Combs, Miss Janice, got out of the vehicle just a few moments ago, really, behind us and walked inside to elated cheers and her greeting the crowd. Every time the family, the children, the 6 adult children come in, 3 boys and 3 girls, they are met by cheers. And also at times throughout the course of trial, met by scathing and disrespectful comments as well. A lot of profanity.
Let's get to the baby oil, because there are people outside. And this is the part to me that's just, this is ridiculous. Like, why does that, do you need to do this? Does this need to happen?
she gonna do, y'all?
Why? 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 People, why? 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 I don't understand. Why does this happen? Why is this happening? Like, I'm not getting all my questions answered. Like, what about, people that said that they were drugged? What about people that said that, oh, well, they were putting drugs in the baby oil, and what happened to all that? I mean, did these things happen? Yes or no? Because apparently, like, the jury seems to be apparently split on this. But I mean, like, so are we supposed to believe that all of this is made up? I don't believe all of it is made up. That's what I'm saying. And so if that's the case, and Diddy, let's say he does walk, or let's say he just gets probation, right? What does that mean for everybody who testified against him? What does that mean for everybody else? And either way, I kind of look at it as though, dude, your reputation is probably fucked right now, even if you do walk, because now people know something that you really didn't want them to know. Because now people know about these freak offs or whatever, and that's his own, their personal thing or whatever. But now it's like, it's one of those things. It's like, once you see it, you can't unsee it. It's like the whole Pee Wee Herman thing, like I still, the actor that played Pee Wee Herman, and it's kind of hard to look at him like the same once you found out what he did in the movie theater, like, I don't know. I remember when Pee Wee Herman got arrested, like that type of thing. So I just don't know. Does life go back to normal for Diddy after this? I don't think it does. I don't think it goes back to normal for Cassie or Don or the rest of them either. And here's something else that's interesting. People are asking, well, how was Diddy able to do this for as long as he did? Well, he's rich. He knows a lot of powerful people. But according to his bodyguard, there was also this.
Do you think Diddy was an FBI informant? You think the feds had him?
I think that they knew about him a long time ago. And there's certain situations that came out, like this guy, paperwork, found some information where Puff was seeing a federal agent in DC. And it popped up. He had an appointment with a federal agent in DC.
What year?
And I think 91. Somewhere when he was
that early.
That early. I don't know why or what was the situation. It came out.
Wow. Diddy seen with a federal agent in 91? That's way before he becomes somebody.
Yeah, but you got to realize he was doing a lot of parties. He was doing some lot of things in DC. And
he was also a hype man. Like, people forget this, but like before there was Bad Boy Records, remember Diddy was like an A&R rep. He was a hype man for a guy. I don't think he's around anymore. There was a musician named Father MC, and Diddy was the hype man for him. So he was already in the music business for quite a bit before he started Bad Boy label.
I think it was possibly because there was an incident when some people died.
Got it. Similar to the other one with the 9 kids?
So yeah.
Got it.
Similar to DC.
Let's go back.
And I think it was possibly because there was an incident when some people died.
Got it. Similar to the other one with the 9 kids?
So yeah.
Got it.
Yeah, that was a long pause. It wouldn't surprise me. Sometimes people are able to get away with things like that for as long as they do, because they do have some type of connections. And speaking of connections, how about this flashback? Because see, Diddy had political connections too. Did y'all forget?
It's right.
This is definitely the start. This is the start of the conversation. AOC, do you have something else to say?
Yeah, no, it's like Angela's saying it all right now, because it really calls into question, why? It's not just do Black Lives Matter, but why do they matter to you?
I see you on the front line. Let's get it.
See, people forget, right? People forget, like Diddy knew a lot of people. He had political connections. He has music. It's not just music. He was buddies with a lot of people. And another thing I want to mention too, why I think that Donald Trump will probably pardon him is because remember, like I said, Donald Trump was at those parties too. There's videos, there's pictures and stuff of him hanging out with Donald Trump. People forget this too. Donald Trump used to hang out with the rappers. Donald Trump I remember when I was a kid, Donald Trump used to be in music videos. He was in Bobby Brown music video on Our Own. Remember that song? On Our Own, the Ghostbuster video song or whatever. He was in that music video. People used to sing about him. Don't forget, Nelly said, Bill Gates, Donald Trump, let me in. See, people forget about this, but Donald Trump used to hang out with it. Did he know a lot of people? A lot of powerful people. So you see the political connections here. Van Jones, AOC, of course, Angela Rye. Angela Rye had to be on there. She had to be there. And wait for it.
Yes, sir.
Hey, everybody. It's good to be with you this evening. Sean, I want to thank you because you always have a way of convening and bringing folks together. It's right.
See, people remember, right? You remember now? Yeah. I remember Diddy had this whole this voting campaign back in the day. It was called Vote or Die. You guys remember that? Yeah. See, people forget. He knew people in all these different types of spaces. So I doubt he's going to receive 10 years. I doubt he's going to receive that. I won't be surprised if he gets like probation. I don't. Too many powerful people to take down, man. Too many people. And I just don't think he's going to be able to, they're going to let that happen. Matt Stew said, rock the vote. Yeah, I remember that too. Yep, rock the vote. Right. But this all leads back to, once again, this article from Whitney Webb. Don't forget what Whitney said. It was one label under blackmail, the early intersections of Diddy and the Epstein network. And this is a long ass article, but I'll put the link in the chat so you can read it on your own. We went through it before on the show already. But what you honey buns got to know is that there are powerful people and powerful forces at work. And Whitney made the connection between Diddy, Andre Harrell, Russell Simmons, Levi here. I almost forgot about him. And then later on in the article, Clive Davis. It's a long article, but it is really good. Really, really good. How it's all connected, ladies and gentlemen. So like I said, you're talking about taking down powerful people. Russell Simmons fled the United States and took his ass to Bali because he knew what was coming, okay? All of this is connected. So if Diddy goes down, that means some of these people might go down too. And if they go down, would they talk and would they reveal other names as well? You see what I mean? It's a domino effect. I think that people that just have a lot of money and have a lot of power, they're able to get away with a lot of things. Hey guys, this was a Sabby clip. If you like what you saw, hit that like button and subscribe.